So start from the premise that everything counts in terms of resources, countable, and then let's back out what doesn't count. The main resource that most people have that doesn't count is their home, which is huge. That the community spouse doesn't have to lose their home. For a single person, their home is an exempt resource, yes, and they can have over $1 million of equity in their home. The highest level allowed right now, which is what is in Washington State, is $1,033,000 in equity, which is really important, especially on the west side of our state, where home values are so high. A single person can have over $1 million in equity, and that's an exempt resource. We'll talk about Medicaid recovery. For a couple, very easy to avoid Medicaid recovery in Washington State by simply transferring assets into the name of the spouse, the community spouse. For a single person, those transfers aren't so easy. Usually that results in problems. So a single person's home typically is subject to the state's lien for Medicaid recovery. We'll talk about how to avoid it, but as a general rule, a single person's home will be subject to a state recovery. What else is exempt? A vehicle, just one, not two, one vehicle. And that vehicle is to be used to transport somebody to doctor's appointments, or it can be used for that. It can be a very expensive vehicle. It can be a $100,000 vehicle, and it's exempt. There's no limit on the value. It just has to be the vehicle that can be used to transport to medical care appointments. What else? Personal property, unlimited personal property. All the jewelry and stuff in the house and anything. Personal property is completely exempt. Then we have the next exempt resource on this slide, which is life insurance. Not any life insurance, though. Life insurance policy that has a face value of $1,500 or less. That's really hard to find, something that is so small. So that's really not a helpful exempt resource category for us. Also exempt is burial plans, cremation plans, as long as they are what we call irrevocable. If you have a revocable one and we're working with a client for Medicaid eligibility, say go back to the funeral home or where you purchased it and say it needs to be irrevocable. It's not a problem to get it irrevocable. Business property, which kind of can of worms to open. Business property means like maybe the person going on Medicaid, they own a small business, they and their spouse do, and it's totally what they rely upon for their income. That's actually an exempt resource. So that's a planning opportunity or an opportunity to protect assets for sure. Long-term care insurance partnership policy. That's a particular kind of long-term care insurance. I believe anything sold in the state currently would fit the criteria for being eligible. But let me give you an example of how it works. Let's say you're a single person and you have a long-term care insurance partnership policy that has a lifetime benefit of $100,000. So when you go to qualify for Medicaid, you can keep not just $2,000 in countable resources, you can keep $102,000 because you had the foresight to buy a policy that paid for your care up to $100,000 in my example. So you get to keep $100,000 more than anybody else that didn't have such a policy. So that's can be a planning opportunity if you have that type of policy. And then probably one of the most powerful planning tools that we have is what's called the single premium immediate annuity. It's also called a Medicaid compliant annuity. This is an annuity that no one has as part of your financial package unless you are right now seeking to qualify for Medicaid. Why is that? Because it's not the normal annuity that you buy because it provides you guaranteed income for the rest of your life, so you're never going to run out of money. No, the Medicaid compliant annuity, the SPIA, is in Washington State. It is one where typically this is how I'll talk about how it's used in my example, but The key thing with a Medicaid annuity is that the state is the next beneficiary after the person who bought it. So that is a really odd situation for an annuity. That's why I'm saying you don't have that annuity unless right now or you have qualified for Medicaid.